That's it. Now, stop the bleeding. Focus. Good. You succeeded. Mastering your breathing. It will open many doors for you. Now, it won't solve everything, but it will help. You will continue to grow stronger.
Thank you.
Quote-unquote random esoteric symbology and awareness of spirits and beings, and showing how the way the body is built on certain, you could say animals. In this case, we're talking about insects. And before getting into this, I realized not to get into that space where, I'm making it a thing to be, again, worried externally. And not say worried, but trying to, analyze so much to where, I'm not being present in the moment and not living my life. At the same time, it's all right, this just came to me. I'm not just sitting around trying to figure this out. So with all that being said, to get to first, this realization started with when I looked at glasses, and I'm glasses, I'm it almost looked like, fly eyes, you know what I'm saying? Except for the little smaller compartments, it's almost I thought of a fly at first, but then I just thought of well, shit, most insects don't have a quote unquote pupil, and that's where it kind of, got into this. All right, most insects don't have a pupil. And the lack of pupils creates a lack of intimacy with eye contact. Because even when people wear shades, in essence, in most cases, it's for two reasons. As a matter of fact, this will show how and why, in a lot of cases, as spoken on in the collab video with Bridge of Ra, where the insects are, in essence, a part of the matrix and a part of surveillance, CIA surveillance agent type of energy. Not to get caught up in whether it's good or bad, right or wrong, but more so just being aware of, what the symbols and what these things point to, and even down to the fact that within the movie The Matrix, now which both sides were, so it can't be, it for sure isn't, again, seen as good or bad, but I think of the agents, though, mostly, let's just say in most cases, though, the agents in the Matrix wore glasses, they wore sunshades, Agent Smith, in all his little manifestations, wore sunglasses. And I feel the personification, though, of Morpheus and Neo and all the people within that crew wearing glasses is that situation where you use the tactics of somebody else to help yourself, so it's how they have the bug eye glasses / surveillance / you know what I'm saying, again, covering the eyes so you don't know where I'm looking, so I'm able to surveillance my whole environment without you being able to tell. Because if you, again, magnify a fly or any type of little insect eye, you can't really tell if it's looking over here. You can't say in this moment, all right, that dragonfly looking to the left. Oh, now it's looking to the right. Oh, it's looking up. Oh, it's looking across the room. You cannot tell where, you know what I'm saying, most insects, I just say that to not, Because maybe there is insects where you could tell where they're looking in essence, in the sense of where they might have like, like a little eye that kind of does at least like where their lids kind of move, but just in general though, their eye in general, you can't tell what direction they looking in. So with the fact of insects lacking pupils, because again, the pupils and, us having the little dark hole with the eye color and then the white space, and the fact that we see, like, it's not our whole eye that see, it's not the white part, that's viewing things. It's more so the little black portal, the little black hole, and we're able to tell, like, when we look at somebody, again, the eyes are one of the keys to looking into a person's soul or looking at a person's energy. You could also see things through the eyes. So again, wearing sunshades, prevents that intimacy. You know what I'm saying? I vibe with y'all. I love y'all. I'll get intimate with you. But for the sake of this video, you know what I'm saying, doing it with the shades on. But the insects have that lack of intimacy, and with that being connected to, this being a matrix, and the matrix being like, in essence, like a CPU, in essence, it has like a robotic energy. And also when you look at insects don't necessarily present emotion. Now, one could say, hey, because you from a human perspective, who knows, they might have a little signals or little things with each other that only they could read, that might be the equivalent to what we see as emotions. But ultimately, insects could have like this robotic type of, energy to them, where they just do their little tasks, eat, move around, but just, no form of emotions that we could see. So insects lacking pupils, making for less intimacy, with the eye contact. And then again, like what the lack of pupils, symbolize is also surveillance. You're able, like when you're wearing glasses, you're able to do surveillance, and what, bugging somebody, when the CIA or the FBI like trying to do surveillance, what they call it, putting a bug on somebody. You know what I'm saying? Quite literally, and then some people associate flies with, quote unquote monitoring spirits. But again, it's not to get caught up in the whole external chasing down, witch hunting, or warlock hunting, but like just not trying to hunt, externally to see, who's this, that, or the third. Just tap in with your intuition, strengthen your intuition, do spiritual practices and things to, amplify your intuition and discernment and your auric field health, which is, in essence, is also a part of your protection. But just again, peeping game of the symbols. So glasses are, again, like the actual eyes of most bugs, has this energy where you can't tell where they're looking, so they could surveillance things, and if you was to look in their eye, you wouldn't be able to tell if they was looking at you or across the room or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So surveillance, lack of intimacy, and being able to see what's going on, what's going on deep inside that insect. You can't really tell, like you're not getting, it all looks the same, no matter if you, I'm pretty sure if you took a picture of, you know what I'm saying, the eyes of a fly in moments when it was eating, in moments when it was about to get swatted or harmed, in moments where it just had maggots or children, you know what I'm saying? In any of those moments, I'm pretty sure the eyes would, again, just like wearing shades, like this, it doesn't change. You know, you see the little mirror effect. Matter of fact, you see the little phone, the little mirror within the mirror thing going on right now too. As I'm reflecting about the symbols of this insect, you know. But just those two things, though, that just comes up is the lack of intimacy and the lack of, or the ability to do surveillance, you know, and the lack of being able to tell where somebody is looking, you know. But again, connected to the insect energy. So no coincidence that, you know, agents, as like CIA agents or anybody that does surveillance, you know, wears glasses, you know, bugging somebody, you know, is a part of surveillance, and bugs are in essence like the mechanism of the matrix of the earth, you know what I'm saying? Again, it's not to good or bad earth and none of that type of shit, you know what I'm saying? It's just understanding the symbols, you know. Because ultimately, some of us may have, you know, whether it be, you know, some type of connection, because just by having a body, you know what I'm saying, in some way, form, or fashion, you know, this body is connected to the quote-unquote matrix, which will be connected to quote-unquote insects. You feel me? So, you know, that's why one of the reasons, again, like, you know, it's like not a, it's the, you know, but more so just connecting the dots, you know, bringing more awareness towards the symbols, and you could see, because now it's like adding to the evidence. It's like, all right, on top of the fact that bugs are, you know, always tied into the mechanism of the matrix, again, like the spiders, the web of destiny, you know what I'm saying? And in essence, also being like a, you know, like Skynet, or a web that kind of boxes things in for reincarnation, and a web and a spider connected to like the, you know, the stars, you know what I'm saying? Which is a part of, like, in essence, like an algorithm or governance system for this realm, for the matrix, you know. It's all connected to, you know, the fact of, you know, you could say the robot aspect, or the matrix computer, more so I didn't say robot, but the matrix / computer aspect. You know, you see how that connects, you know. And again, not only with surveillance, the terminology bugging is used, like, oh, put a bug on them, so we could surveillance, you know. But then also, like, oh man, I'm trying to work out all the little bugs in my computer, you know what I'm saying? So it's like also in reference to computers and surveillance, you know. And again, throughout the video, other than the part where I kind of raise my glasses up, you don't know for sure whether I'm looking directly at the screen or whether I'm looking over here, you know what I'm saying? Even when I point and say I'm looking over here, you probably feel like I'm possibly, you know, like, but your intuition and your discernment, you know what I'm saying, I'll let you know and feel like, all right, that person is looking at me. Although they got glasses on, I could feel they watching me. You know what I'm saying? But, that goes into connecting those dots, where you could see. And lastly, I would also say that there must be some type of energy, with pupils, like in whatever deity or spirit decided to create bodies that have pupils, want to have more of that, intimacy in essence. And I feel like that's connected to the mammal aspect, you know what I'm saying? Like mammals, more so you could see pupils, and, you could kind of look at your dog eyes and tell when they feeling a little sad, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, when they joyful, but like, you could look in the eyes of more so the mammals and kind of get more of like a intimate connection, or like just seeing something beyond just a blank canvas, and in that essence of it. Because again, when we talk to like a blank stare or a blank look, again, that's kind of equated to robotics, and stuff like that. So again, it's like the human, or the mammal, aspect, has the pupils, and again, whatever DNA, whatever, genetic scientists, aka whatever genetic scientist, spirit, genetic scientist being, that implemented the pupil aspect may have did it with the intent to create some type of, quote unquote, intimate aspect. And also, in essence, wasn't trying to hide anything. Doesn't mean that all insects are trying to hide something in that essence, but just the nature of the nature of the body. Just how we talk about like body language, like that's just the nature of how the insect is built, I feel like I be vibing with the insects in certain ways, you know what I'm saying? Like, be chilling outside, I ain't gonna be getting bit by no animal, no spiders, no wasps or bees be trying to sting me, you know what I'm saying? And that also points to, as I brought up bees, you know what I'm saying, the hive energy, hive being connected to, again, like the matrix, or the matrix, mama, matriarch, bees and ants, you know what I'm saying, have like this queen system, where mammals don't really have that. Like I would have to do more research, but since all of my years of just at least watching Discovery Channel and all that shit and observing on my own, like I never seen, mammals with a system where there's this one queen that keeps just, creating, almost like clones of herself. Because also in a lot of cases, in some cases it's, a male involved, or some type of like, something in essence of like an external stimuli that promotes the birthing process. But that also points to, like parthenogenesis, and how parthenogenesis may exist more so on the insect level. And then that's also with, with sea beings in the sea as well. They got certain fish and stuff that could actually change sex. When you look up like hermaphroditic or hermaphroditic or hermaphrodite, animals, a lot of them would be like fish, or like, shellfish or snail, like those types of animals. But that don't exist on, the mammal level. Now, with that being said, now add that fact to all the mythological stories, all the ancient stories of who and what gods and goddesses are, and this spirit is related to the dog, or this spirit is related to the butterfly, this spirit is related to, lions, this deity is connected with, sea turtles, this deity is connected with shellfish, this deity is connected with elephants or hippopotamus, but so with what I just said in this video, again, you could add that to your experience of, studying, or the things you have already studied and read about or experienced, that goes with all of the ancient texts, all the spiritual texts of these beings were more like bulls, or these beings are more like scorpions. These beings are more like, you know what I'm saying? Like all of that, And again, keep it in mind that, again, you got some hybrid beings. The cat being one of the most popular, domestic cat, with the connection of like a cat or a feline and a reptile, or a feline and a snake, a cat and a snake. You know what I'm saying? What I just thought about, like some birds, also in essence, you can't really tell, they, in essence, their eyes, some, not all. That's the thing too. And that's why I brought up the hybrid situation, because, some birds may be hybridly crossed with certain things, But like some birds, you can't tell what they looking at. Because the first thing that came to mind was like pigeons, and like the blank stare of like a pigeon. And then like for a pigeon to be like one of the only birds that you will see more in a city setting. Like a pigeon could have a tree or a forest right by it, but they gonna choose to live on a building. You know what I'm saying? Again, like, no judgment to the pigeons, but that just helps you to know, like, all right, this being don't never want to be in nature. This being, got mostly all his relatives love being in trees or just in nature in some way, form, or fashion. But this one, loves to cling to buildings and eat any and everything, similar to a pig. No coincidence that a pigeon name starts with P-I-G. But, again, just showing how all those things connect and how you could add that to the symbolic meanings, when you study in ancient texts, when things show up in your dream. And of course, dream symbols also may have personal aspects that may not be related to, in essence, some of the stuff I'm saying, but more so personal experience. But again, it just adds more details and more connections, where you just could see, like, all right, inevitably, insects' eyes do seem like it lacks intimacy. It do seem like, like somebody wearing glasses is similar to bug eyes, and that's connected to doing surveillance, and hiding wherever, hiding what you're looking at by having bug-like eyes or sunshades on, like you just see all of those connections. But that's simply it, And again, sharing from that space of what comes up. You know, a part of me would like to, you know, also share stuff like connected with, like, you know, what's going on in the world in that essence. And this is something that is going on in the world, but, you know, like as far as like with, you know, whether it's, don't necessarily have to be politics, but, you know, like our weather conditions and stuff like that, you know, want to stay on point with that as well. That's a part of me. At the same time, what naturally comes to me, like, you know, especially if it's deep and it just naturally comes, like I didn't have to read it, it just bang. Like, you see how this, like, all right, bam. That could be valuable for somebody, you feel me? But, you know, just wanted to share that, you know, something that you could, you know, learn more about, or add, I say learn more, but add to, again, you know, the ancient, quote unquote, mythologies, cosmology, stories, you know, and bring more clarity and awareness to, you know, all these different types of, you know, animals and spirits and deities, and, you know, and understanding all the different connections, you feel me? But now's the vibrate. Peace out.